Good evening, Peter.
Good evening. How are you? Listen,
I am.
we've not done What's New Wednesdays for a long time, so as I can get you singing.
No.
We'll have to do that again sometime.
Someday, Sunday. Oh, no.
I had my photograph taken the other day by a chap called Alistair Morrison, who has taken all the stars like Tom Jones and all their photographs, all their portraits.
I thought you were going to say by the Polis.
So I'm up there. No, I wasn't at the Polis. So I'm there. So it's good. Good evening to some folk. Here we go. Hello.
Hello.
Kenny. Hello, everybody out there. Thank you for joining us. Wonderful numbers joining the show tonight early on. Straight away, that is fantastic to see. Remember, we're going out live on Facebook, on Tunes in the House, Peter Wood Music, Tartan Tunes page, Tartan Tunes YouTube, and Tartan Tunes Twitter. And have we got a show for you tonight? We have.
I don't know, Peter, do we?
We have. No, we've got a great show.
We've got a show. Okay.
We've got some really good guests again. We've always got good guests. This is the show. This is the place to be.
Yep.
On a Sunday night, this is it.
Yep. Before we can't start, if anyone notices my camera freezing, don't worry about it. I'm still here. I can still see. I can still speak. But my camera's taking the mick out of me today. So if I freeze or becomes a pink screen, just carry on regardless.
Remember, folks out there, when you're sending us lots of messages in, because we love hearing from you and we want to know where you are. I noticed there's somebody in Boston, USA there, which is
Boston, Massachusetts.
People all over the place. There's Ina saying hello, but let us know where you are as well. It's fantastic to know where you are. There's fantastic numbers joining tonight. This is wonderful. Super. Please hit your share button as well and share it to even more people, because we're going to cheer you up. We've got some great characters on tonight, haven't we?
We have that. But firstly, what have you been up to this week, Peter?
What have I been up to? Well, I was getting my photo taken with that famous photographer.
Is that the one that did the stuff with Tom Jones?
Yeah.
What's his name? Billy Joel,
Yeah.
and
Paul McCartney,
Ringo Starr. Yeah, I seen that one as well.
Yeah.
So now they can add the famous Peter Wood to his list.
Aye, it's quite cool.
Fair enough.
So I wrote my wee tune there yesterday. I'll maybe play that next week actually, because you were going to put some whistles on it for me this week.
I will be, yes, if my if I get a chance. I've got a very busy week ahead of me. Very busy week.
I know Tom Dooley. I don't know.
It's all right. Not Tom Jones.
Yes.
So,
the comments come on.
I know. Now you get to know how I felt last week.
Yeah, I've got the job this week, so that's good. Who have we got as our guest tonight? Tell the folks.
We have the piper, tutor, and author Dan Nevins with his what can only be described as, I was going to say it's a niche book, but actually it's probably the opposite of a niche book. It's very kind of opening to a niche subject. So we'll be talking more about that later on. And we have the probably a Gaelic singer that a lot of folk wouldn't have known existed. Gilabreja Macmillan. He's from South Uist, but some might recognise him from his time in on Outlander. You know the big TV programme.
Oh,
Starred in, starred in that. He was one of the cast in that. He played the Bard. So yeah, we might talk a bit about that when he comes back.
Big Rab Lennox saying he's looking forward to Dan.
Yeah.
Has Rab sent you all the awkward questions to ask Dan tonight?
He has, yeah, but I can't find that by paper right now.
It's okay. Well, we had some pretty awkward ones as well.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll find it. We're going to have a set from you, Peter, aren't we?
Aye, and we set 4-4, so I decided to put together this afternoon. The first one is, they're all pipe tunes. They are all in the pipe scale. The first one was a tune by Michael Phillip. Michael's got books out. I think he's got about 4 books out now. The Cardenan collection. And the first one, I was trying to mind the name of the tune, but I was looking through and I thought, now that's a nice wee tune. So
I've realised, Peter, sorry, I've realised who that is now. It's the Carden collection, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, I've realised who that is. I have seen his videos on Facebook. Yes, I know who you mean.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So the first tune's called Kyle of Dunkirk.
Okay.
A wee 4-4 march. Mm-hmm. And then a wee 4-4 march by this guy called David Alexander Hunter.
Not heard of him.
Some guy. And it's a wee tune he wrote that we had in the tune once, and asked anybody if they would mind naming it. And Alan Monroe, I think, won the contest that night and named it. And what did he call it again?
Breaking in the Brogues.
Breaking in the Brogues. Great. So, there's Jenny in South Africa. Super. And
the third tune?
Angie Gilfillan. The third tune is an old traditional tune called The Man at the Loom. A really old tune. I'd like to dedicate these to Ernie Curry. Ernie from Dumfries has been a follower of all these shows for the last year and a half. And unfortunately, he's taken quite seriously ill and had to be in hospital. But I did speak to him tonight. And he spoke to me. And so just wish him speedy recovery. So all the best, Ernie. Here's a wee set of 4-4 marches because I'm sure he'd like that kind of stuff.
Here we go.
Hey, there we go.
Not bad at all. Not bad at all.
Nice sweet tunes, aren't they?
Mm.
I have a great. A thing I like doing, right, is playing. Hi, Isabel. There's my heart's supporting friend, Isabel. That's lovely. I like to play a modern composition with an old composition, or a track tune. And if the two can stand up beside each other, I think you're cooking with gas. Because, let's face it, when we go back to the really old trad stuff, there's some cracking tunes out there. Absolutely amazing. Lots and lots of modern stuff coming along. But if they can complement each other, I think that's magic. I think that's really good. Because you could sit and play a whole set of just brand new tunes, and that's fine. But when you can mix and match the two together, I think that works really cool.
Well, that's the thing. Even, when you go to see these big bands like ABBA, you want to hear the old stuff.
ABBA.
I've
never been to see ABBA.
Okay, in your case, Ablett and Costello.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. That's it. So,
you don't hear folk asking for the new stuff off the album, do you?
That's it. So here we go. Right, good. Listen, let's get on. What have you been doing this week? Running out a kitchen?
No, that was this morning. The kitchen came out this morning. I have no kitchen until Ali Meek puts my new kitchen in.
All right, okay.
So he starts tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning. So in 12 hours, I'll have a bearded ginger joiner in my kitchen area.
Can't beat it. No. Folks, thank you so much for joining. Wonderful, wonderful figures tonight. Please keep sharing this about. Remember to keep the comments coming in as well throughout when we've got the guests on as well, because it's really nice if you want to ask the guests anything or anything like that. It's always great to catch up. There's Tony Reese in South Africa. We had Tony on a couple of weeks ago. And Ali Meek says, yeah.
Yeah. It's fine.
Have that kitchen ready, boy.
Well, it's gone, so.
Anyway, take us away. And let's get on with this show.
Yes. So our first guest tonight is, as I said, Piper, is solo competitor and now author, the one, the only, Dan Nevins. Hello, Dan.
Hello.
Evening, gents. Just going to hit you with an opening salvo. One statement, two questions. Statement one, Davey, Big Ginger Joiner is a great name for a tune.
It's already done.
There you go. There you are.
I'll send you it.
Peter, two questions. Question one, on the bass for the accordion, is there like a set routine? Not routine is not the right word. Is there a set of rules that you use for putting in the bass? And this add-on question, when you get to the kind of chord coda at the end, do you ever just put in an absolutely stinking tritone or something that sounds like it's out of a horror movie for your own amusement?
I've done it unintentionally quite a few times, actually. It could be nice to do that thing. The bass is in patterns. It's a Stradella bass system, but it's more. I can't what you mean with the arrangement you play in them. There's various arrangements you can work with. You've got bass notes and chords on the bass end of an accordion, so you've got, it's quite cool because it's a kind of self-accompanying instrument, and you can do a lot with it. We were kind of discussing that earlier on. There, you can actually the accompaniment you put with a melody, like certain chords and all that, you can nearly make a tune come together because of both things happening. The actual melody might not be that strong, but then you can put in a really strong accompaniment to it, and it makes the tune happen. Whereas if you just have the melody, so you get away with that in an accordion. But of course, as you know yourself, with a set of bagpipes, you've got that one line melody. So if you don't come up with a cracking, if you don't come up with that melody that everybody remembers, that's not going to happen. So it's quite hard that way. So.
Just something.
We're supposed to be interviewing you, no you interviewing us.
That's my opening gambit. It's like going to prison and punching the biggest guy you see.
Yeah, just go for it.
So, Dan, tell us, how did you start piping? And when did you start piping?
I think I was probably well, the hierarchy in our house was this: there was my mother and father, equal footing. Then there was
No, there wasn't. Your mother,
looking-
your father.
Yeah, come on.
If my father was telling this story, then that's how it would work. But and beneath them, there was the Carlucan Districts Pipe Band, my elder brother, and me. So we didn't have any pets at the time. So I ended up being a kind of tag along. Your options for entertainment in a weeknight where you can go to your Granny Nevins's and sit and watch the telly. You can go to your Granny Beatty's where there's a million cousins and you're trying to watch the telly but you can't hear yourself think. Mm-hmm. Or you can go to the pipe band where you can't hear yourself think, but at least something's happening. So I was always surrounded by pipes, like my earliest memories are all frankly of pipe bands. But even now, like I play, well, my band pipes are my father's pipes that he competed with. Mm-hmm. Like this set of pipes that I've been listening to since I could consciously understand I was listening to anything. It's just always been there. I mean, having said that though, I was never the most like organic of players. I'm a bit of a control freak and always have been. So I need to know what I'm doing. So like I need to know every aspect of what I'm doing to make sure that I'm not doing it wrong. Mm-hmm. And it took me a long time to appreciate that about myself so that I could do it. So in answer to your question, it was through the family. I'm a third generation piper. The family's been involved in the pipe band scene in central Scotland since the early 1940s. My grandfather was a big part of the pipe band scene in Lanarkshire, certainly in North Lanarkshire. He was the bass drummer in the New Mains and District Pipe Band. And I found out this interesting thing from one of my uncles, my oldest living uncle, Uncle Peter, who was a side drummer in the Lanarkshire Police Band. That's going back a bit. But Peter claims that in the early 1950s, 1950, 1951, my grandfather got approached by the Edinburgh Police Pipe Band to come in and be their bass drummer. Now, see, about 2 years later, but he didn't do it. He didn't want to move the family out to Edinburgh. But 2 years later, he got tuberculosis and lost a lung and ended up having to change jobs entirely. He was a miner for his whole life. And then he ended up at being like the washroom manager. Because in those days, if you get injured in the mine, they would just find you a job. Yeah. But I wonder about that. You wonder about the decisions that you make and how it affects things going forward. But he ended up being the treasurer in the Scottish Pipe Band Association. I mean, that's how far back it goes. Wasn't there even the Royal Scottish Pipe Band Association yet? But yeah, the family's been involved for a long time. I guess it was just always meant to be that I was meant to play pipes.
Yes, so it sounds like the family's kind of in with the bricks and mortar of kind of pipe band life now in Scotland.
It sounds like you might have been thrown out if you didn't play pipes, actually.
Well, I do have an older brother, and he hates bagpipes, and he doesn't hate bagpipes, but he's certainly ambivalent towards it when we were kids. He's quite a bit older than me. He's 7 years older than me. And Matthew's like, I think now he wishes he could bash out a tune, but certainly for the rest of his life he's not interested in it. And it never affected that, so I think it'd be all right. I think now that my brother's kids are having a bit of a footer with it, they're maybe going to pick it up. And I've got little cousins that play. Well, I say little, one of them's 18. He's certainly taller than I am. So it's in there, but I mean, I suppose the whole thing about the tradition is it's okay. I come from a piping family. I grew up around it. I've kind of had a sort of Forrest Gump life in that I was here when a lot of stuff happened. I got to see things, and I remember details about situations in our piping world that I was just happened to be standing in the corner, picking my nose, watching what everybody was doing. I think the nature of the instrument and the nature of its music is that it's everyone's. So you pass it on that way. It doesn't matter who you're passing it on to. If it's a gift that you give your family, great, but it's a gift you give to everyone anyway.
Right.
It's true.
Right.
It's true.
Good attitude.
So from your... Sorry, Peter.
Are we going to have a track of music for Dan at some point here?
Some point, yeah.
All right, okay.
We'll get to that bit.
Good. Well,
so you're kind of piping after you started playing. Did you go through high school playing, did you, or through the kind of teaching and all that sort of stuff?
Good God Almighty, did I go through high school teaching? What do you call it? In fact, there's Chris Norton's just put up a thing there. Chris and I are from the same wrong side of the tracks in Lanarkshire, and then I grew up playing pipes in North Lanarkshire about 3 years before it was cool to do that. So, like there was no North Lanarkshire schools or anything like that. That project, which is phenomenal, and it's producing great players on the pipe and the drumming front. That wasn't even a twinkle in Robert Matheson's eye at that point, you know. By the time I left school, there was I think there was like a chanter group at not even the school I went to, at Airdrie Academy, a different end of the town entirely. So yeah, I went through, and I was definitely the school's kind of novelty act, you know, fat, specky kid, not really that good academically, but he can turn up and play bagpipes and stuff for us. It got to the point where the bishop, oh geez, what was the guy's name? Oh, that's a shame. He's retired now. He was a lovely, lovely guy, but I think he got a bit sick of every time he turned up to do something at this school. I was out the front blasting out, you know, Cock of the North and Bonnie Dundee at him. But yeah, I get roped into it, and it was definitely. I mean, yeah.
If you think you were the odd one who just playing the pipes at school, imagine when I went to school in Biggar, not that far away from where you were, and I played the pipes and the accordion. So imagine how odd I was.
You know, at least with the accordion, you could play along with you could at least pretend to play along with somebody else at that time, especially when piping was in the kind of late 90s, early 2000s. It was like you played pipes and you were your own thing. You know, as pipers, we've all felt that, definitely. But at the same time, you go like, I got to do some cool stuff with it. Sadly, never got to do any, I don't know. I think there's a lot more opportunities now for kids who are in schools to play different functions and things.
Yeah.
There's a lot more ensemble playing and all that as well, with different instruments, etc. going on.
I mean, the school I went to was, I think a lot of people worked very hard. And now being an educator, working in schools and having worked in schools for the best part of a decade, you see how even, like, I teach out of Hutchison's Grammar one day a week now, and that's a very well-to-do school, and it's a very hard-working school. You know, a lot's expected of pupils, and a lot's expected of staff. And that suits me down to the ground, to be honest with you. But I've also worked in more underprivileged areas and state schools and things. And you see how hard folk work, because I've really tried to give. And I think it's very easy for me, and certainly my peers at school, to go, that was a really rubbish school we went to. But I mean it was. But folk were trying really, really hard. I had some great music teachers. There was a guy, Bobby Burns, was the drumming tutor. Kit drum and like orchestral percussion, and I honest to God learned more about how to play, not just how to play that instrument, but how to appreciate how an ensemble works in 3 years of getting lessons off him than I was not getting anything like that at the pipe band, because at the pipe band you turn up, plug in, shut up, and do your job. Yeah. Whereas, like, this was like, okay, right, you know, we're going to play along. Here's a bossa nova, right? This is how this is going to work. We're playing in compound time. You're playing in threes rather than halves, all that sort of stuff. And, like, learning how to feel. And I think later on in my career, certainly post-university, as I got kind of obsessed with playing pipe bands and legitimately playing along with one of the greatest drum corps ever to walk across the line, that stood me in really good stead, because I could feel a groove.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Speaking of feeling groove, we're going to start off with your first set of tunes. It's your hornpipe and jig. Can you tell us a bit about the tunes you've chosen to play?
Yeah, so I'll talk about the jig first, because it's a short story. It's a tune that I learned for the Duncan Johnston Memorial Contest. So this is held in the National Piping Centre. It's a CPA graded event for B and C players. There's Peabrook, MSR, and there's a BC jig contest. And the jig contest, you have to submit at least one of Duncan's compositions. It used to be you had to submit two and play them back to back, but now you submit one and they select from, you know, the choice of two. The whole idea was just to try to maintain interest in Duncan's Duncan's compositions, sorry, not playing. And I think that's kind of done its job over the past 20 years. So it's James McClelland's favourite. It's a tune that I think a lot of pipers will know, even if they don't know where they've heard it, they probably will have heard it. It's a very tricky tune, and the style I play it in is a bit of an oldie worldy way of playing. I don't play the kind of 1 2 3 2 2 3 1 2 3 2 2 3 straight tight band style we're very used to. I play a more lilting sort of oldie worldy fiddle style, really. And the hornpipe is a composition of my own. It's called Willie Rowe. I titled it after a Kiwi piper that came and played in Shots while I was there. Willie's a great guy, love him to bits. Him and his wife Sarah are phenomenal people. Living over there in Paradise, back in New Zealand, where they're from. And the whole crack with me and Willie was Willie as a player is very interesting to listen to. The guy's an A-graded light music player. He's in the silver medal. He's a phenomenal musician. The thing with Willie's performance that's really interesting is his fundamentals of the on-beat and the offbeat are so excellent. It's very hard to, in a first listen, to pick out any minor issues, the thickness of a grace note, that sort of stuff. So his overall presentation is always sparkling and clear. And by Willie's admission, he'd go, well, if you listen back to that again, though, I didn't like this, I didn't like that, as we would all do. The thing with Willie is I used to stand on the back left corner, the furthest away from the pipe major, but because of where the bass drummer stands in the band, I could never really see Ryan's hands. I could only ever see his feet sticking out the bottom of the bass drum. But I could see the guy to his left, and that was Willie Rowe. So there was definitely 2 world championships in a row where I was watching Willie's fingers, but Willie was watching mine. So we had this loop going. If one of us had went off it, the other would have followed, But yeah, for like at least 2 years, that was all it was. But I wrote this tune, and I thought, if there's anyone that could pull it off, if there's anyone that could make this slightly awkward melody sound really smooth, it would be Willie Rowe. So that's why he got it.
Well, and I'm looking forward to hearing the jig played with the swingy style, as you say, as well, rather than the pipe band. I think in the accordion we can do that very, very easily, but it's difficult to do on the pipes, to be honest. An expression becomes the thing. So, yeah, looking forward to this. Good. Yeah, fantastic. That's great.
So the lesson that we learned there is always check before you produce your final video and send it in. That's the second time that's happened to me. See that bit at the start? Obviously, I intended to cut that first go at the first part. Just put the whole thing together and went, fine. Watching it back now, I'm like, that doesn't sync up at all. You know, you'd think after a year of playing to your phone, you'd get better at it, but
Dan, actually messaged me privately.
I just messaged him because I saw him going out the room and coming back, and that video just stopped and started there again. There's something wrong with this machine.
No, something wrong with the player. That's well, it's only a one-pipe jig. I'm terrified about this MSR. That's fair enough. There's the tunes. There you go. That's how it went.
Music's only a guide anyway. It's fine.
It's all the right notes in the right order, but it just looks dead weird. I find myself watching it being like, just don't watch the video. Watch over there, and you'll be fine.
I remember a competition once with an accordion competition. They have a pipe section at the accordion competitions as well, but you just play pipe tunes. And I remember one guy who went up and he started so brilliantly and it went really well, but unfortunately he went into the second measure and went into another tune. Unfortunately he got to the third measure and went into another tune. And he managed to play 4 tunes within the 4 measures, which was absolutely very well. He played them all very well, but unfortunately,
it's impressive.
Yeah.
Sure, I heard that story
if you play in
about
the lower grades, the map tunes are exactly the same as well.
I had a story about a really well-known piper doing that around one of the games, playing like 4 first parts in just a march contest, and then came at the end, and the judge went, the first part's the best bit of the tunes anyway.
Chris Norton's got a good reason for that bit at the beginning there.
The full 8 bars, Chris.
That was it.
Just warm up the fingers, that's all it was.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Well.
So we've spoken about your grade 1 player, and you're a solo competitor as well, which we'll see when this MSR comes up.
I hope so.
We don't know what MSR is. We don't know what MSR is, but it'll be good though.
Have you missed the kind of performing at games through all this, or you've been quite happy with the kind of the online competitions?
Yeah, I had to say I never ever want to compete online ever again for any reason. Joe, there's just certain factors in it where I think, first of all, I think that there's a technological issue where you need to have all the right gear to a certain, like, it doesn't have to be complicated, sure, but I definitely think that there are folk who are a bit more savvy. And I mean, I've got enough audio gear to do whatever I want, right? But I'm like, I just don't want to. You know, it's just not the truth of how the instrument sounds. And I'm not saying there's folk out there doctoring their performances. I don't think that's true. But I think if you've got a setup that allows you to really easily hit record and play without it being a hassle, you're going to have a better run at it.
Right,
I mean,
you're going to feel comfortable. You feel so much more comfortable if you've got a setup that you can just start and stop. If you're suddenly thinking at all about the tech you're using while you're playing, you're not concentrating fully on the player.
No. Yeah. No, I agree.
I mean, anyone that's ever played a live gig and had their mic cut out on them, and just, you know, it's as if you've fallen into an abyss. You know, like you're playing away and you know the instrument's going, but you look at it.
Davey put his hand up there, but the sound engineer actually cut his mic off on purpose.
No. So quick story. I was playing on Colton Hill, which was the year before the independence referendum. You know, the big Edinburgh thing. Mm-hmm. So we were playing there with the last band on, and we did the sound check, and they went, "Yep, no problem, that's fine. Well, we used the acoustic guitar DI for your mic setup, great. And I'm only playing one tune, so they'll change it over for me when the band comes on. Great, fine. So the band goes on, they do their two numbers, and then I'm ready to walk out. And I walk out playing, and I can hear me, the band can hear me, the audience hears nothing. They didn't change it over.
Yeah.
You probably find behind that desk there's 2 guys looking at each other going, Did you plug the thing in? Oh, I thought you were plugging it in. Right back to Abbott and Costello, you know. I feel like the less the less there is in between you and the audience, probably the better. I mean,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, there's some great stuff done with it, and we've all embraced it. It's not going away. It's a fact of how things are going to be. But in terms of like competing, especially, a big part of competing is turning up on the day, looking your peer in the eye and saying, I went off it in the last line. How'd you go on? Like, there's a community there. And that's the thing. I felt kind of deprived as a community. I'm sure we can all agree that's the issue.
But do you not feel as well, though, that bagpipes, acoustic instrument, have had no real need of any technology to be involved with them at all, really, at the end of the day? I can there's wee bits and pieces that we talk about new reeds and we talk about chanters and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, the process of playing a bagpipe and the audience hearing it, it's not like it was reliant on amplification or something like that somebody had to turn up with an effects box to make the pipe sound like this or something like that, and then the effects box didn't work. So it's a natural thing to just stand and play to an audience or play next to somebody rather than playing online.
I think so. I'm in a pretty privileged position with where I work and what I do, that I've been around some of the best players alive. So no other way of putting that. And like even during the Masters, I was the cellar dweller for the Masters. I was the stewarding downstairs for it, and you're standing in a lift. It's a cargo lift. It's not a big space next to some of the best players, and they're striking up their pipes and blowing their drones for that 30 seconds up in the lift. And it's not earth-shatteringly loud. Sounds great. But you think to yourself, hang on, see, this is one of my bugbears with the instrument a lot of the time, because I've been guilty of this. And when I had to change, when the situation demanded that I change, it was really difficult for me inside my head to get this to work. You don't have to blow your head off. You don't have to have an earth-shatteringly loud bagpipe. What you need to do is manage the instrument in a manner that allows the harmonics created by the reed and by the material to bloom out of it. And that's what's going to carry your sound. Finlay Johnston is a phenomenal example of this. Watch Finlay play. He's not struggling with that instrument. He's not blowing his head off. It's not the world's loudest instrument, but it sounds great. And because it sounds great, you're drawn into it. And in my experience of playing in pipe bands, certainly, there's a few individuals I can think of immediately who were like obsessed with having the loudest drones. And like they'd blow up and they'd be purple, and you go, what's that? That's just not enjoyable. What was that? What does that John Wayne attitude actually give you?
Yeah.
There you go.
So let's hear your MSR then, Dan. Can you remember what your tunes are?
Yeah, it should be.
Should be.
David Ross of Rose Hall, the You with the Crooked Horn, and Major David Manson. I think I put the composer names in there as well. Maybe we'll find out.
Good.
Here we go.
Yeah, great point.
Nice,
That
editing's a bit tighter there as well.
you know something, that match was swinging. That match was really swinging. We talked with Bob Matheson a couple of weeks ago about this, and his words Gallus, and playing at Gallus, and I like to think of it as the Glasgow swagger. You know, that wee swagger that somebody has as they're walking down the street. And that was there. That was there in abundance. That was swinging. So much feeling in it. Lovely.
What's funny is outside of Glasgow, it's the Glasgow swagger. Inside of Glasgow, it's for everywhere else. So, but I think there's a thing to be said in there, like the way 2/4 marches are approached, right? Like in the pipe bands, it's squares, right?
Yeah.
1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and fine. Seeing every other section of the trad world, right? Doesn't matter if you're an accordion player, fiddle player, solo piper specifically. It's not a square; it's a cube. Because it's got pointy corners and sharp edges and sheer faces, but it's definitely three-dimensional. You know, whereas I think the pipe bands, if I can just bore you with my practice chanter for a second, like we played the Highland Wedding to the nth degree, right? To the point where we used to laugh on the line if it got called, because we knew we'd practiced it to a point where, see, as long as you get your pipes away, your brain would shut off, you know. Now, that's a perfectly acceptable way of playing it if you've got a drum corps behind you. But it sounds pretty flat on the ear on its own. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
But if you just stretch out wee bits. The thing that we always forget in the bagpipe is it doesn't get louder or quieter. It doesn't start and stop, and you've got a fixed range of melody notes. What you've got in an infinite abundance is space if you choose to use it. So
you're not working with dynamics in the same respect, like say the fiddle or accordion or what that can. So you have to do it that way. You have to make it happen. So
absolutely, and I think it's something that I describe it to pupils like you imagine a frog jumping from one lily pad to another. The frog doesn't care how much the distance is or how high it is to jump. It just cares that it lands on the next lily pad. What you're actually doing is you're filling up a volume. So if this is the start of beat 1 and this is the start of beat 2, you've got to fill that space. Now that space can be elastic. And that's what you tend to find the best performers in any kind of art form bring to it. You know, you go and listen to like Paganini, right? The kind of very, very old recordings of Paganini playing. Yeah, or people playing Paganini, maybe I should say. And there is an elastic quality to it. You know, like I think we try to live in a very black and white world whenever it comes to the delivery of the music. And the greatest exponents of any of it, of any musics at all, will find that space making. You know, and what I'm finding in my own development is that I feel like, you know, I get into playing in the solos for real, taking it seriously about 7 years ago. I'd footered with it before that, but 7 years ago, I really gave it a go. And what I started off from a position of being quite musical and then felt like I spent 5 years being like broken down to nothing, right? Like the basics. I really distinctly mean the basics. I definitely mean the basics, I should say. Like, how do your fingers move? How does it feel to move your fingers? And then rebuild. And I only feel like now I'm getting back to a point where I can kind of, for lack of a better term, trust myself as a performer to deliver that musicality that's there, that, you know, that swingness, that, you know, strong weak, medium weak, that, you know, giving a beat, taking a beat, you know. But I also think I think in terms of our cultural performance, there is a thing that says it's got 4 beats in the bar. You've got to make sure you hit all 4 of them, you know, regularly. So there you go. I don't know. There's some thoughts for you. You can do what you like with them. They're free.
Cool. David, did you see that comment I put up a wee bit earlier there? That's quite an interesting one.
Yeah. So that actually brings on to our next question. or next statement. You've recently released your debut book, which is Pibroch is for Everyone. And I think, without even getting into it, I think the way you describe piping, it's sure to be kind of an eye opener for a lot of folk as well. Because Pibroch seems to be a very kind of Marmite choice for a lot of people. It's either you like it or you don't.
Aye, but do you know what the big problem I think is there has been everything goes through waves, right? Doesn't matter what it is, right? If you look at the way people dress now in sort of popular culture, it looks very much like how people dressed about 25 years ago. But for 25 years, that was grossly uncool. Piping, Pibroch specifically, has had that and has had that throughout. In the book, I kind of lay out a spine that you can grab onto, right? There's lots of information about Pibroch. There's lots of branches that come off it, right? Lots of little bones that add up together. But I'm giving you the central point. So it all starts, it actually starts at the start of everything, of humans. Because a lot of the concepts we now deliver in terms of our performance practice are 8,000 years old. And there aren't many art forms left that have a true sense of simplicity in those terms. You know, what I said before, you don't get louder and quieter, you don't get start and stop, and you've only got a fixed range of melody notes. So that allows that simplicity, the power of that simplicity to come out. Simplicity is not a negative. In fact, most things it's a positive. But the big thing there was like, yeah, it's a Marmite thing. I didn't get it for a long time. In fact, I'm sure there are some in the judging panel who'd say I still don't get it. And maybe they're right. You know, maybe they're right. That's fine. But the point is that you keep going. But I think for me, again, control freak, I needed to know why. Why do we do things the way we do them? You know, in terms of playing the music, if folk book a lesson with me, I'll give you how I got it. Now, for me, the part of the family is, you know, I get my Pibroch off Willie Morrison. Right? I've had a few tutors try to introduce me to it, but the main guy that has taught me how to play Pibroch has been Willie. Willie got his Pibroch off his grandfather Donald, who got his Pibroch off of Willie Laurie, who got it off John McCall, who got it off Robert Meldrum, who got it off Callum Peeber. Callum Peeber got it through his father, through his grandfather, through his great uncle, or his great uncle, I should say, back to the McCrimmons of Skye, all the way back to the beginning. And you go, right, well, for me, I can go, well, this is the way I've been taught how to play it.
Yeah.
Whether that's right or wrong or indifferent. But I can rely on that's the connection all the way back to Skye.
Yeah.
You know? But also, I think at a certain point, any player, you know, whether you're up playing the gold medal or you play it for fun, if you've been taught the tunes, you probably find that we're related. You know, you probably find it's not a terribly big country and all that sort of stuff. It will link together. That's what I think. There's a fraternity in there, and that although we might do things slightly differently, and I do mean slightly differently, we all kind of do come from the same sort of background or the same lineage. And I thought that was important. I thought it was important to say to people, look, this is why this is yours. Now, it doesn't matter if you come from, I don't know, Mars. If you want to pick up a set of pipes and play, you're part of the group, right? If you've got the nuts to get up and play, you're just as nuts as the rest of us. So that's the rules, right? If you're going to pick up a practice chant, or you're going to start, then it's your music too. If you don't even play, still your music. But if you're going to be part of the thing, then it's going to be part of you too. And that's what I wanted to do. Pibroch is for everyone. The thing for me was that I'd found it an interesting experience to write, because first of all, there are no classes you can take about how you write a book, right? You just have to get up and write the damn thing. And it might be absolute rubbish, but you can always go back and edit it, but you can at least start writing it. And the heroes that have popped out of it, you know, the people who you go, I would never have known how influential that person was. You know, in piping, certainly in competitive piping, the shiny. Here's good news for all you pipers. You can just go and buy trophies. You can go to a shop and spend what you would spend in entry money and just buy a trophy. Right? You can buy a gold medal, not to sell out. I sound like I'm getting on it like the competing set. But what I'm saying is, like, the competition is important because it keeps things fresh and it keeps the fraternity of players together. And it is only right to reward people for their hard work. But it's not everything. The thing about life is you die at the end. So you may as well do something in the middle there that it contributes, that passes on, that's part of a greater thing, bigger than the whole. For me, from what I'm doing, my stone thrown into the pond at this point is Pibroch is for everyone. And what I'd say to everybody watching, if you play traditional music and you're curious about what the hell is going on with that bagpipe, then there's worse places to start. So there you go. There's my big, wild, adventurous plug. Thanks, Gordon.
So the book came out how long ago? It was not long ago, was it? It was called months ago. Oh,
last month. Not even a month. Not even a month. 11th of August. Yeah, it came out.
Yeah.
What was weird was so I was on the ticket desk the day it came out because it was all like a pre-recorded book launch that went out, and so while this thing's getting launched, my phone's like vibrating off the table, but I'm sitting at the ticket desk in the Piping Centre looking at 4 copies of it, like on the release today shelf, and it was surreal because obviously it's occupied my life for a year. I thought that I would have drunk heavier during it, like in my head, a writer like smokes constantly and is drinking and has like a pork pie hat with a little thing that says press in it or something. But no, it was generally me sitting listening to like post-punk bands shouting at a picture of Seamus McNeil. And I just off screen here, I've got I've been given various things through the year, and years ago at the Peterborough Society conference, which is always wild, a guy called John Schoen. John's been a contributor to the Peterborough Society for a long time. He lives in London. He's done a lot for piping in London. He's a great guy, right? One of these heroes I was talking about. But John did a piece on his time with various greats of the 20th century. I mean, John must be 80-something now. And he gave us out these pictures. And it was like copies of old Polaroids and old photos. And one of them is from Glenfinnan Games in the 1970s. And it's like Angus McPherson's one of the judges. Like the judging panel's this sort of veritable group of men. The names escape me right now. But another one is of a very old Donald McPherson in his house. Now, Donald McPherson being like the king of kings in the mid-20th century, right? Like, if you were getting a prize in front of Donald McPherson, you must have really been properly phenomenal. And he's sitting there with one of the giant Kilberry books, one of these things. Like the original printings are massive. And he's going through it with one finger in the line, one finger in the air. And I thought, that guy knows it all, has done it all, and was a famed student of that art form. And he's still referring to the text. He's still talking about accuracy and consistency. And I keep it on my wall as a reminder that if that guy was paying attention to the wee things, then I've got no right to ignore them. I'm like, okay, now that sounds a bit serious, but like I've got a wee sort of treasure trove on the wall. But Seamus, I've argued with a picture of Seamus McNeil a lot over coronavirus, if I'm honest with you, to the point where now it's facing the wall because I decided that he was in a huff with me. That's
not bad name for a tune either. Seamus is in a huff with me.
Well, if it hadn't already been written during his lifetime, it was probably written now. What I would say actually is anybody that's really interested in this sort of stuff, there's a few places that you can, if you go and read Pibroch is for everyone, and you go, do you know what? I just want more of this lovely ice cream that is Pibroch. The Pibroch Society website, I think it's pibroch.co.uk. Get yourself a membership, it's 20 quid a year, but you get access to not only loads of audio recordings, but all of the conference papers going back to 1974. And, oh boy, is there a lot of really interesting stuff in there. I mean, you can get right mental about it. You can get... you'll find stuff out where you'll be like, why would I ever want to know that? And then you'll pick up your Pibroch Society collection or something and go, oh, that's why they're talking about that. It starts to all come together. It starts to make sense. The other thing is a thing called Tobar and Dulcis. I apologise if that's not how you pronounce that. but done by the University of Edinburgh's like ethnology department, and it's got loads of stuff in there, not just about piping, but about the entirety of like Scottish and Irish traditional music. The recordings go back to like I think John Lomax might be the earliest recordings. Also, if you're looking for something to read, there's a great book about Alan and John Lomax that I can't remember the name of, but if you Google it, it's the first thing that comes up. And their kind of travels around Europe and America in the early 20th century, recording wee old crofters in the middle of nowhere, singing songs that nobody outside of that hamlet has ever heard, but to preserve them, you know, and their kind of adventures.
Dublin Docus was I remember doing some work with university with that as well, and Julie Fowlis was doing a lot with it at the time, kind of promoting it, etc. And of course, I do recommend that, folks. If you go on that website and look up Dublin Docus, I'll post that later on. And Kist of Treasures, I think. Is that what it's translated? I think that's maybe what it comes back to. Kist of Treasures. So definitely worth looking at.
Before we...
Sorry.
Yeah, no, go, Dad. No, you're...
I was just going to say, it's amazing what you start finding once you start digging. I said earlier on about how I've had a kind of Forrest Gump-like life, and that my father knows everybody. I mean, the first thing we talked about tonight was that Peter played in Goulburn when my father had the Coat of the Carlucan District Pipe Band, you know.
Yeah.
That's a kind of that's what my life's been like, you know. How's your father getting on? You know, you can be standing there with the Jubilee Trophy, like, how's your dad? And you're like, well, haven't really thought about him. In fact, here's one for you. When I won the Worlds with Shotts in 2015, there is two things. First thing is, I heard the S, and I looked over at Slot because I thought they'd won it. Because to be honest with you, I'd kind of been thinking that they were kind of on the way to doing that. I thought that was going to happen because we were just such an outside shot. I looked over, and they were looking at us, and I was like, that's weird. And I looked around, and the entire band had like dogpiled together into, you know, there's footage of that, and you know, what do you call it? Fraser runs off, right? The redheaded kid takes to the skies. And my first instinct was to phone my dad. So I phoned him, and I goes, Dad, you'll never believe it. We've just won the Worlds. And he went, no, you haven't. I have. No, you haven't. I have. I had to hang up them. He thought I was just winding them up. It wasn't until about 3 hours later that I checked my phone again, and I had about 8 missed calls and what a voicemail that went, I checked the internet. I have. Well done, son. That's great. Anyway, sorry. What was I going to say? I was going to say something that was actually useful there before we kind of finish up. Oh, yeah. Once you start picking at these things, the kind of big thing coming forward is, you know, what do you do next? You know, writing's a bit addictive. You know, it's like practice. The more you practice, the easier it is to practice. So you practice more. The more you write, the easier it is to write. So I'm still maintaining the writing I do for Piping Today. Not Piping Today, it's not that anymore. It's bagpipe.news. But I've kind of branched out with different things. I write every so often for Piping Press for Robert Wallace. But what's Dan going to write next? I mean, it could be worse. I could be addicted to Class A drugs or something. At least I'm sitting in the back room writing away at something. You know, I'm not out with nothing in a gutter.
What about a crime series involving bagpipes or something like that? That could work.
Well, do you know, actually, what I want to do is I want to write pipe bands for everyone. Right now, that's a difficult thing. I say it's a difficult thing because Peabrook been around for a long time, but there's a very set. This is the spine of Peabrook, right? And you know, it's pipe bands. Oh, well, there's a lot of guys out there who had really good ideas, standing in the tuning park watching somebody else have really good ideas. So there was no interaction, no lessons, no conversation there.
Yeah.
But you know, like you talk to Richard Parks. Talk to Richard Parks about this if you want. You can talk to Ian McClellan. And Richard will tell you, I watched what the police band did and I looked at their system. And Ian will tell you, every time I turned round between 1979 and 1989, Richard Parks was standing behind me. Ian's words, not mine. And that's the way it's done. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But the thing is that's a lot of information over a very, very short period of time, about 250 years. So it's going to take a while to get that out. In the meantime, I'd quite like to write a book called Death, Sex and Bagpipes about like
Okay.
a novella about a pipe band.
Well, there you go. And doing the research for it would be quite interesting.
Well, see, I
do
want to write
research.
just a total
You can do
fiction book.
research. Get Chris Norton. There you go. You can call on his expertise a wee bit for the.
That might be too dark. I was looking for something maybe a little funnier. Here's my pitch, right? This is my pitch for a pipe band novel, right? So first of all, totally fictitious, not based on anything real that ever happened. And the dafter it gets, the more obvious. Well, I say that, but I mean, we all know how daft this can get. But I thought it'd be really fun to write about a grade 3 pipe band in the south side of Glasgow between 1996 and 1998. Here's the opening of the book. A guy is walking across Argyll Street in the West End, and he's thinking in his head, oh, Big Peter needs a new read, and wee Seamus, he's going to need new drone reads. And I think he was having an awful time blowing his pipes out on it. I need to check that bag. And then he gets knocked down by the number 36. Dead instantly on the spot. And then it cuts to like a housing estate in Glasgow that's like rough, RUFF, right? We've abandoned the GH and went straight for RUFF. And an old guy gets out of, sorry, I'm laughing at Chris. Old boy gets out of a battered Fiesta and goes up to like a door that's just about hanging on, knocks on it. It's answered by like a shadow of a human being, and he says, "Your brother's dead," and that's the start of the book. That's what I've got so far, right?
Dan, I think you should just abandon the book idea, just do a screenplay.
I don't get me started on that. that's a whole thing. I always thought it would be fun. Anyway,
have we got a bit of music here for Dan?
We do. We're going to, before we say goodbye to Dan, we've got a ground of a P-Brock here, just to kind of reiterate
And
what you're saying.
where can folk buy the book?
you can get it from me direct at dnpiping.com. Just be careful with your spell check, because if you don't make sure and click it, it'll go to snooping.com. I don't know what that is, but it's nothing to do with me. So dnpiping, right? Delta November piping.com. And there's kind of two options. I do like signed copies and stuff. Surprisingly popular, the signed copies. There's a few sort of options for delivery and stuff. If you want to buy other piping supplies, you can get it from the National Piping Centre's Bagpipe Shop, and that's bagpipeshop.co.uk.
Brilliant. What are we getting to listen to here?
The King's Taxes, the ground of the King's Taxes. Now, I picked this tune for a specific reason. We talk about the heroes that pop up, and a name that is foisted upon us a lot as competitors, certainly, is that of John MacDonald of Inverness. I mean, a gargantuan titan whose shadow casts itself towards the present day. I mean, blots out the sun. And he's an interesting guy, because some pupils talk about him being like RoboCop, and other folk talk about him being like Santa Claus. You know, if you talk to the Browns, Bob Brown, Bob Nicol, Johnny, he was a stern man, oh aye. But you talk to like General Frank Richardson, he's like, we'd have a couple of tunes and a few drams, and it was generally a good laugh, And so you go, well, he's interesting. But he played all the big tunes, right? Definitely. The Harp Tree, Donald Byrne, all that sort of stuff, all the big ones you can imagine. But he won loads of stuff. In fact, he won the Highland Society gold medal playing this tune, and he won the first Pembroke Society gold medal playing this tune. Yeah. So what I think is interesting about him is when you think of John MacDonald of Inverness, you think about like Ronald MacDonald of Mora or Patrick Ogg, these 14, 16-minute long tunes. But he won all these big prizes on wee 9-minuters. Probably there were 7-minuters back then, because they were playing at some rate. Now, what I'd say is interesting, and actually December 15th, Pembroke Society are doing their like online, similar to this sort of thing, and I'm doing the one on December 15th, and I'm going to do it about how do you choose the little choices. What's the difference between my King's Taxes and your King's Taxes or your King's Taxes? And how that's fine. That's how things go. To quote Donald MacLeod, nobody plays Pembroke quite the same way. So yeah, so some of my choices in this ground are like straight out of a recording of Bruce Gandy playing it. Some of the choices are directly what Willie would do, and some of them are off of really old recordings. Now, there's not that many, but there are wee things where if listeners listen to this and then go and find other recordings, you'll go, well, he cuts that note a little bit harsher than that note, and he does this. There's a pulsing thing here and there. Those are choices that have to be made. I chose this tune because A, it's short, B, it's dead melodic, C, it has some sort of historic weight to it, and D, I think if you scratch at it, you'll find something really interesting, or at the very least, it'll just make you itch.
Brilliant.
Right, what we'll do is we'll let you go and we'll play you out with this P-Rock. It's been great seeing you, mate.
Listen, can we just say thank you?
Yes.
Listen, thanks so much, Dan, for coming on tonight. All the best to you and family, everybody. Thanks for giving up your time on a Sunday night to come and play to us. And here we go.
Here we go.
P-Brooks for everybody. P-Brooks for everybody. Here we go. Cheers, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Whoa, fantastic. What an informative guest. What an absolute character. Yeah, that was brilliant. Really, really interesting. He's got some cracking patter there too.
He does.
No,
He was never going on, but he did say he could talk for Scotland, and I think we realised that today as well. So, what we'll do is
we have another brilliant guest. We're running just a wee bit late, but we have another brilliant guest, and we want to get him on as soon as possible. So please take it away.
So we have the Gaelic singer extraordinaire, Gilabria Macmillan.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Hello, sir.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm not too bad at all. I was enjoying listening to the stories there and thinking back that Willie Morrison, who was mentioned, is from South Uist as well, and I know the family well, and great pipers. Lots of great pipers in the family. In fact, his Louis Morrison was my piping tutor as well. So,
all right.
the same
So
Morrison
you-
family were our tutors. I'm not quite as good, I'm afraid. I keep saying I need a few months of practice to get back on the pipes, but I used to play. I lived in Dundee for a while, and pipe major Harry Ellis was
Oh,
my
yes.
tutor. So
Ah.
yeah, so
I used to play one of
amazing.
Harry's. I played one of Harry's tunes a lot, and still do sometimes. It was a 12/8 march called what was it? Somebody Sousa's Bagpipe March or something like that. It's in the Tayside Police Collection, I think.
he's a
so-
great man for the piping and for the stories himself.
Yeah.
he's
Good.
fantastic,
But I suppose growing up, when you've grown up with Gaelic song, Gaelic culture, piping's a big part of that as well, of course.
Of course, yeah. So I grew up in Milton or Garavalchis in South Uist, and my dad was a piper, although he wasn't really piping when I was growing up, because he had a problem, like so many people in the Highlands and Islands, problems with the fingers. And so by the time I was coming of age and going to lessons and so on, he couldn't play. He had a good appreciation of which grace notes I was getting wrong and so on, but he couldn't teach me. So I was taught the bagpipes or the pipes by Callum Beaton, or the chanter, I should say, Callum Beaton and Louis Morrison at the Bornish Piping Club. And I carried on for a while with the pipes, and then gave them up when I came to Glasgow. And then when I lived in Dundee, went back to the pipes, and I was Harry Ellis' tutor there. But yeah, so I was a fluent and native Gaelic speaker. So I suppose I learned my English in school, and Gaelic was the language of the home, the family, school, and so on.
So I take it the Gaelic singing would have started back then as well, and kind of in the house. I take it.
Yeah, so it would have been on the radio and so on in the house all the time. People coming to the house, there'd be sing-songs and so on. My two sisters, who are 4 and 5 years older than me, they still are very good singers, and they one of them, Maddie, just released an album a few months ago. So they were kind of singing and going to lots of Céilís. And then, of course, you'd just be going to Céilís Friday, Saturday night, and very informal. People would just stand up and sing a song. And I suppose in that way, you're just being kind of immersed in the culture and the style of singing. And I think that's really important. That you pick up the style of singing. And of course, when somebody sings, and if it's a chorus song, everybody in the hall will be singing along. And of course, we were also taught in schools. Katrina Garbett, who herself is a great piper, she was our singing teacher in primary school. And of course, then Ishbel T. MacDonald, who was the niece of Shawnee Rochen, who was a very famous piper, John MacDonald, Glasgow Police Pipe Band. She taught me as well.
I take it. I don't know a huge amount about Gaelic singing, but styles and variations between the islands, is it a big difference between the?
Yeah. So you could. I would say there's links between Uist and Barra, for very similar style, and North Uist as well, and even Harris is very similar to that style. And then I would say of the Outer Isles, Lewis is quite different and distinct, because Lewis tends to have a lot more ornamentation. So you've got, I suppose, it might be the impact of the psalm singing with all that ornamentation and so on, but certainly in South Uist and Barra, and even further south like Tiree, we wouldn't have the same amount of ornamentation, I would say.
Makes sense. The so where to go next?
Oh, that's great! I just saw the Harry Ellis. Give Harry for it. I haven't seen Harry for. I left Dundee in 2004, and so I haven't seen Harry since then. So, give him my regards.
What were you doing in Dundee?
I was a teacher in Forfar Academy. I was a Gaelic and geography teacher in Forfar Academy, and I lived in Dundee. And so I can't remember how. I think I went to the music shop in, I think it's the Perth Road, is it? Or I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, it would be
but
yeah.
And I asked them who would be the go-to person for piping tuition, and they gave me Harry's number. And every Thursday night, I used to go up to Harry's house, and we just have the first hour or so would be just chat, and then we'd get down to business and a couple of hours of tuition, and it was great. He's such a lovely man. So
I always think that's a good.
he wrote a good for me as well. I'll have to
Right.
called it. Can you teach Macmillan of South Uist? So
Oh, brilliant.
I'll have to get it out.
I always think it's
Get it
great.
yourself. I'll get it sorted.
I always think it's a great thing when there's that social aspect of knowing your tutor a bit and getting to know them, and then getting down to the serious stuff, as you say.
Yeah.
It is nice to get to know somebody on a personal level when you're working with them. It's very good.
Yeah.
So, have we got a song we could maybe hear?
We do. We've got the
That'd
first
be
one.
good.
And if you want to tell us about
Yeah,
it.
so the first one is
Come
called
on,
Famous
Davey,
Daddy.
Davey, show off your fluent Gaelic here, please. Come on.
No.
That's that.
So I'll help you out then. This is a Féimú Radish. Dave, you might recognize the video. It was recorded in Arbroath.
Okay.
And yeah. So it was one of the places I used to go to when I lived in Dundee, and I loved it. And I thought, oh, it'd be quite nice. So the video goes. It's I suppose the song which I wrote myself. I used to every Saturday night growing up in US. We used to go with my dad and my mum to go and see my granduncle George Macmillan. He fought in the First World War, and it was really just listening to his stories of really not knowing, I suppose, why they were at war and so on. And so I composed the song "Do You Have to Say It Again?" And if people had listened or were listening to the lower, just kind of the soldiers who were fighting on the front, as it were, perhaps people wouldn't still be going back to war again and again and again. So this is the Féimú Radish. Do you have to say it again?
Fantastic.
There we go.
Ushtuðin je marava Sinju marahas Kana tu amada Hami kinyach maravi Achanye shjerdu Takadish the skew Non Féimú Radish Jadish Jadish Féimú Radish Bana dunya khunnik is at home Takisha man khawm the ina doesn't spar you Gina now Mahukap Reinyatten sulen taulen jegaham Sulen Reinyatten sulen taul
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
For the last part there, what I'd asked, because Vary Hall, the great pianist and producer, she produced my album. So since it was about the war and the destruction of war, we decided that the last part would be kind of music showing the destruction of war and so on. So that's why it's quite the fiddle coming in and just lots of different sounds coming in. And then for the video, I worked with a Portuguese videographer I know here in Glasgow, and he did that. And his idea was, again, you can see my head fitted in very well with the stones there. So by the end, you're seeing so you don't know, because again, so you're seeing one person, but surrounded by so many of the things. And I suppose the question is, are they stones or are they people and so on? And I suppose it shows the different numbers of the millions who lost their lives in the First World War as well, and in subsequent wars. So that was the idea behind the song and the video.
Incredibly professional, very, very professional production. Very, very excellent.
Oh, thank you.
Much appreciated by many people out there. They're really, really enjoying it and saying it was just fantastic.
And I have to say, I suffered a little bit for the art, because it was a beautiful night in Arbroath, but I had to be in bare feet out in the rocks, and so you see a few witches, I think. But it was worth it. It was really amazing, and of course the cliffs in Arbroath, and it was just amazing.
Is that why the rescue helicopter? Is that why the rescue helicopter was hovering in the background, just in case?
Oh, I didn't see that. I'll have a look.
Only joking.
No, that's fantastic. So is that off your previous album, is it?
Yeah, so that was I've released 3 albums by myself. So the first 2 were of traditional songs, the songs I grew up and learned just from the community and so on, and from Tobrandolchish, which was mentioned earlier on. I was a cataloger on that for about 4 or 5 years.
There you go.
That's how you say it.
I was actually working. Yes, you said it very well earlier on, I have to say.
Oh, well,
and so I was working there as a cataloger, and it was a great job, because you're just listening and getting paid to listen to stories, songs, pipe tunes, and so on, and writing a little summary. So it was a really great opportunity to do that, and I had a fantastic time. So the first 2 albums were of traditional songs, and the third album was different because it was all my own songs. I composed all the songs myself, and I suppose that's quite different in Gaelic culture nowadays, because we tend to go for older songs and so on. But I wanted, and there are a few other people doing it now as well, Alistair White, Marianne Kennedy, Rachel Walker, and so on, who are composing songs. So the whole album was all songs composed by myself, the words and the melodies. And so I've carried it on, and there'll be another one coming soon with all my own songs as well.
Interesting to know your feelings on that, though. I think it's excellent that the tradition is carrying on for you to write new material and compose. And I think it's I feel it's nearly essential for the culture to survive, and for the language to survive. It has to keep progressing, doesn't it, really?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's so important, because when you think about it, pretty much all Gaelic poetry, all Gaelic song and poetry up until the 1970s was composed by the local bards and so on in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and people would just sing the songs in the community. And of course, things have changed with TV coming in, people having to get up for work the next day, and people being away. And so that Ceilidh House tradition died out slightly. And because the Ceilidh House died out slightly, the need to compose new songs slightly died out as well, because people weren't coming together and sharing the songs and so on. And it's important to say, I think the Gaelic song tradition of composing songs didn't stop, but I think they really are very important, and that's Runrig, because they really did carry on that stream of hundreds of years, with a few other people as well. Ian Costello McKeever and Callum Martin and a few others as well carried on making songs through the 70s, 80s and 90s, Ailey Mackenzie as well. And then in the 2000s and so on, there's a few more doing songs as well, so I think composing songs. And I think it's so important just to carry on learning and singing the old songs, but also to say it's a carrying stream of tradition carrying on, because it's a living language, And of course, if it's a living language, new song, new music will be composed. And I think it's great
Absolutely.
that that's kind of re-emerging again.
Of course, yeah. The you just mentioned also the term the Bard, and that brings us nicely on to a role you played in quite a well-known series, Outlander.
Yeah, so it's incredible what 5 minutes of fame will do to your career as well, because I had the greatest luck to be chosen as Gwilym the Bard in Outlander, and I will be honest, I had never heard of Outlander before that. I had never read the books. I didn't really know much about it, but I went for a casting and I was chosen. They were looking for a Gaelic singer, and they chose me, and I was lucky that they did. And so I sang on the set, and I think it was when I was on set that I realized how big it was, because you just walked into the studio in Cumbernauld, and it was like a whole new town they had built inside the studio, with just
True.
hundreds of extras, cranes, everything. Just they built a castle inside the studio,
Wow.
so you know then it's going to be a high quality production. And then since then, it's really I've had so many opportunities as a result of being on Outlander. The fans are great. They just they love everything connected with the books, with the show, and I've been pretty much all over Europe, all over the world, just singing Outlander songs. And I haven't really, I've only been there a few times, but it's a great opportunity. And then last year, I was asked by Sam Heughan and Graham McTavish to be on their show, just it's completely gone out of my head the name of the show, I can't remember, can't believe I forgot that. But anyway, we were in Glencoe, and I just had a great time, and they were just really lovely people, so interested in the music, in the language, in the culture, and just they've done so much to promote Scotland through the show, and so many tourists come to Scotland, or their first taste of Gaelic culture, of Scottish culture, was through Outlander. But that's meant that so many people have then gone on to something else and find out the living culture as it is now, and it's been great. Men in Kilts, of course, has come to me now.
Men in Kilts, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so it's there.
But very interesting. Very interesting, because I, like you said yourself, you didn't know that much about Outlander. I didn't really know just an awful lot about it either until Davey said, "Well, we're having you as a guest on the show," and then I went and started to look into it. And then when I was discussing the other day in the music staff room at the school where I teach, we were chatting, and I said about you coming on, and then all of a sudden there was all these people. Oh, I know that, and I know. Oh, we all watched that, and it was like, and they all knew who you were. And I thought, wait a minute, I'm going to have to pull my socks up here for something like that. But it seems to have been absolutely and powerfully incredible, especially in America and North America, etc. The people that it's attracted to Scotland, it just seems to. I mean, you've got all these tours, Outlander tours, and everything now that just set up for the thing.
It's a whole industry in itself, and I think Outlander and Diana Gabaldon and Sam and Graham have probably done more for the Scottish tourist industry in the last number of years than any campaign that Visit Scotland could ever do, because you've just got millions and millions of people who are just so into the books, the TV show, and so on, and they want a part of that in their own holiday. So before the pandemic, there were flights and flights coming over from Argentina, Germany, Canada, the US. So I've been to some of the conventions in the US and Canada, and Fergus Scottish Festival is one of them, and they had something like 20,000 people there, and just so many of them turned up just because Graham McTavish, who's in the show, and Diana Gabaldon were going to be there as well. So it's been absolutely fantastic to have a little part of that, I have to say.
There's a question. Did you sing Over the Sea to Sky on it?
No. That was. I have sung it to audiences though, because there's it's Bear McCreary, and the singer on the show is Raya Yarborough,
Right.
But I did do a translation of it. So I write songs, but I also do translations of songs. And that was one of the songs that was translated. And I think if you've ever watched Outlander, season 1, they're singing it in English. Season 2, they're singing it in French, and then it's back to English. On season 1, they were going to do some of them in Gaelic, so I did the translation, but it was just too tight. And when it was recorded, I think we recorded it in the studio with another Gaelic singer, and that was just too tight, and it was never used. So it has been recorded and translated, but it's never been used. So, but I have sung it to audiences and so on. So yeah,
Maybe someday.
and of course it's been great as well because Over the Sea to Sky. I love to tell people that Over the Sea to Sky is of course from Uist to Skye, not from the mainland to Skye. So. Because when the Bonnie Prince Charlie went from Uist over to Skye, that was going over the sea to Skye. In the other direction, as it were.
Everybody always thinks it's mainland, don't they? For some reason.
Yeah. I sailed from Uig to Lochmarrie.
Yeah.
So I went the correct way.
So you went the wrong way, but it's
Yeah, so we're going to go for a second song from you, and if you wanted to introduce this one as well.
Yeah, so this one is called Duan and Knockerish. You'll do the last one. Duan and Knockerish, and that means the refugees' song, or the refugees' plea. So I suppose I composed this song thinking of so many people who had been displaced from their homes in Syria, and now we're seeing it again in Afghanistan, and just all over the places where war was making people move. And there was a time, I think it's probably still going on in some parts, but 5 or 6 years ago, I think with the kind of Brexit, the whole thing with people, and there was those people were openly on news and Question Time and so on, just saying things which just were wrong, I think. And so I composed this song from the point of view of the refugee, who's first of all, somebody walks past and kind of looks dismissively saying, "Why are you here?" And then the refugee tells the story of actually, if you'd sit down with me and listen to my story, you would know exactly why I'm here. And so this is the refugee's plea.
Fabulous.
There we go.
Sa sinna fallaf na tchafa Expedition am huyak yn fawn am o ffoch Jeren miach coiet na tŵlen Hwstw lep ddier yn na byw'n Os y hanau iar I bwamsa Jenig mi moch matin Ys galam I chodra Goprit mis hyrit mis on mi vi mar hamis mahachan mayuskin ruar Kato tusku feijene shi Karshes heines dolas roshin Kerste seisja karman sujin Bainen yin hanin yin Sandal sjache Speker am sluger am I bakkerig na floj Ishin dras goed dan jesje to le John Moskielse si fons doen in John Nam ruig ba mische oors al lorama Alles am breshem spaisch die geboren Heik mil em Heimat feitje she Karstens keine stolans no she Kerstens seishach karman suji A deinen feitje she Karstens keine stolans no she Kerstens seishach karman suji A deinen A deinen A deinen A deinen
Fantastic again.
Thank you. And yeah, that was have to give a shout out to Fraser Fifield, who played the kaval on that instrument. So that's an instrument from kind of Bulgaria, but it's got an Eastern sound to it. So we Fraser was coming on the album, and he saw the words and the lyrics and so on, and so he decided to choose the kaval. So it was absolutely fantastic. And I'll ask Peter, just in case. I think I heard you saying earlier on. Do you know where that was recorded?
Do I know when it was recorded?
No, where? Did you recognize anyone? It was Peebles.
Peebles?
Peebles, yeah.
A long time since I've been there, but of course I went to school in Biggar, so it's not that far away.
Not far away,
so,
yeah. So it's
beautiful, beautiful town.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place, Peebles.
It is.
In fact, the last time I was in Peebles was I had to go to the registry office there to register my father's death, believe it or not, about 4 years ago, because that was the closest place to us at the time to do it. It was about an hour and a half mile drive away from where we lived. But that's the last time I was down there. But we used to go to all the pipe band competitions at Peebles and all that every year. That was always the last one every year, and we marched down the street and go for it. So, John Sharp says
going from Biggar to Peebles and from Carluke, going from west to east, about 2 miles before you come into Peebles, there's a disused railway tunnel, and that's what I was stepping out of. It's an amazing place. It was a lovely place.
It's lovely down that way. It's lots of nice people. I used to enjoy playing down on the borders. It was always this kind of start of the borders, Peebles. Down you went further and further. It was great.
Yeah. And I think I saw a comment. So if anyone's wanting to know the lyrics of the translation of the song, if you go to the YouTube page or search me on YouTube, and there's a video and a translation. In the comments.
Oh, fantastic. There you go. That was Maureen that was asking that. So, Maureen, if you'd like to see the English words, search for on YouTube, you said that one.
YouTube, and then so you search for my name on YouTube and my channel, and then there's a few videos, and each video has a translation of the.
Fantastic. That's great. That's great.
Or just send me.
That's the one thing.
That's another thing as well.
Yeah. That's the one thing I have noticed about songs not written in English is that with the lyrics you can have a different melody line that would not necessarily work if it was English lyrics, but it has a flow that kind of goes with the melody. And I've always found that very, very interesting.
Yeah, so the way I suppose Gaelic rhymes, which has been working through it for hundreds of years, and I try and keep it going, is that it's really not rhyme, it's assonance. So an assonance is the vowel sound. So in Gaelic, it would be fine to have lame and take as the rhyme because it's the A sound. So it's all the rhyme is always on the vowel sound. So when you hear that in the song, So the end of the lines would have pretty much the same vowel sound at the end of each line. So there's specific, and then you might have it in the middle of the words as well. So that's kind of the songs I grew up from the bards learning. So after a while, you get used to that type of which words go with another word and end rhyme of one line with the middle of the next line. So it's quite different from you might imagine as English rhyme. I think in English it might be called assonance or para rhyme as well, something that's quite close in that sense.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. You did mention there, I believe you just finished recording your latest album, is that correct?
Yeah, so I was in the studio this week and just finished all the vocals and all the tunes. So there's a few backing vocals I have to put on, but again, I composed all the songs myself, and again, they're all in Gaelic. And there's a range of songs, subject matter, some very personal, some kind of about culture, about politics, and so on. And I've got a couple of special guests who will be singing on the album as well. So there'll be a lot more coming soon. I don't have a date yet in terms of launching it and so on, but it's just about ready. And again, it's produced by Barry Hall, and playing fiddle we have Deirdre Morrison, who's just a fantastic fiddler. We've got Fraser Fifield again. We've got Emma Smith on double bass, and Ewan McPherson on guitar.
Fab. Great lineup.
Kind of
so
very good. Who's who?
Yeah.
So apart from that, you're also the head of Celtic and Gaelic Studies at Glasgow University.
I am, yes. So I live in Glasgow. I'm from US, but I live in Glasgow, and I lived in Spain for 8 years in Galicia, and my wife is from Galicia. Mm-hmm. But we came back in 2010, and we're still here, and came back to work at the university. And yes, at the moment I'm head of subject, so we're starting term in 2 weeks' time. So things are getting ready for that, with all the students coming back, and just getting ready for a whole other part of just life going on, which is, so there's the singing on one side, and then there's a bit of writing, and then a load of teaching at the university as well, which I really enjoy, and it's great to have so many students doing Gaelic.
So how long have you been doing that role then?
So I've been working at the university since 2010, and I've been head of subject since this is my third year. So yeah. So
and does that involve teaching as well? Or
so I teach
kind of overseeing?
No, I teach language. So I teach language. I do courses on Gaelic song. I do courses on Gaelic poetry and the language itself as well. And this year I'm teaching one on minority languages across Europe with Professor Bernie O'Rourke. So I'm just helping with that course as well. So it's quite wide and varied.
There's John Sharp that I've left that comment up just a minute there. John's talking about the tunnel. You were talking about John's down in the Borders. So you were saying that's where the royalty used to hide in the time of war.
Oh.
So there you go.
So it was great because you could walk in completely dark when 5 meters in, and it's just complete darkness. And then you've got just, I think it's mainly used by dog walkers nowadays. There were a few dog walkers there when we were there recording it. And then there's a lovely bridge as well. And then there's a castle. I can't remember the name of the castle, but just around the corner on the bend in the river was a lovely castle as well.
Is there not an area down that area as well? They think that the first and original Merlin came from there. I'm sure there's an area down there, a small village that they reckon Merlin came from.
Yeah, and it was funny because I'd never, I didn't know the area at all. I'd never actually taken that road. There's the Carluke to Peebles Road. Yeah. It was so, and then you've got bigger further down. Yeah. Beautiful part of the country, and it's nice. Funny how so many people just go north And it's, of course, it's beautiful on north and west and the Hebrides and so on. It's so beautiful, but and it was a part of the country I didn't know at all. And so many people are the same; they don't really know the borders or South Lanarkshire and so on. But it was really, really beautiful.
I would come back to me. Dromelia. That was the name of this place that they reckon Merlin came from.
Yeah.
And there's actually there's a Strathspey called Dromelia as well. So that's what made me think of it.
Yeah.
I see Davey in thought here.
Yeah, just carry on without me. It's okay. I'm still here.
So projects. Obviously, you've got a new album, hopefully coming out soon. Any other projects we're thinking of working on just now?
Yeah, well, the thing that's come up just now is that because people know that I write songs, so I've been commissioned to write a couple of songs. So I was commissioned by Ty Kersevik, the art centre in North Uist, to write a song that the a choir that they were organising could sing at COP26. So I've written that song, and it's a paraphrase of a speech by Greta Thunberg, turned into Gaelic and turned into song. So really good. And another one I was asked by Judy Parrott, who's a visual artist based in Butte, and she was interested in the kind of the folklore of the Cailleach, which is the old hag. She in folklore, she was known as the creator of Scotland, the guardian of the weather, and the kind of the controller of the weather and climate. So there was all these. So any place name, there are place names throughout Scotland with Cailleach, the old hag. So Cailleach, Alt na Cailleach, Stream of the Cailleach, Bain na Cailleach, and so many places. When you look at kind of the hills and so on, you see the structure of a head. So you've got an old lady lying down. So with her, so a nose is a ridge and so on. So those stories. So I turned that into a song as well. So that's going to be released soon. And also, I'm working with Rona MacDonald and John Binney, we did a play a few years ago for the National Theatre of Scotland, and we're working on another one, which is a kind of a reimagining of the Greek play Antigone into a Gaelic setting.
Okay.
That's been really exciting to work on that.
Well,
performing that in kind of December sometime.
So less of the Greek sunshine and more of the Western Isles rain.
You've got an extremely diverse lot of stuff going on. It's fantastic. It's really good. You're leading an interesting life.
It's good. I don't have time for anything else, but it's good.
Yeah, it's good. Brilliant.
So we're going to go into your third video and song. If I've got to give this a go, it's Bala Nam Bart.
Yes, Bala Nam Bart. Perfect. Well done. And that means village of the poets. And this song is about the Clan Budich or the Clan Curry. And the Clan Curry were the bards of Clondonald. And they had their kind of bardic village where people would, all the bards would come and they would write their songs and so on. And that was in Stillicary in South Uist. Now I got to know the chief of Clan Curry, Robert Curry, who lives in New Jersey, United States. So hello, Robert, if you're watching. And he commissioned me to write a song for Clan Curry because they were starting to do more in terms of what they used to do as I think they're called a learned family at the moment, a learned family of Curry, or the learned kindred of Curry. And of course, they used to be people who were involved in the arts. And since Robert has come on as clan commander and future clan chief, they've started again kind of investing in the arts and kind of doing competitions and so on. So he asked me to compose a song for the modern form of the Clan Curry. So I did that with kind of references to the past, but also what's going on at the moment.
I'm laughing at Alan Monroe's comment here.
Yes, still recording. Yes. Yeah, back it was funny because Cailleach, I know somebody, and he always referred to his mother as a Cailleach.
All right.
So it's,
I don't know if you know.
it could
I
be a
don't
term
know.
of endearment.
Yes, I don't know if you know Alan. There, but Alan's Donny Monroe's brother.
Ah.
So you were talking about Runrig earlier on there.
Oh, yeah.
Same people.
And Runrig are so important in that kind of whole trajectory of Gaelic song carrying on and not having. I suppose it's the unbroken kind of 1,000 years of Gaelic song creation, which without Runrig, I think in the late 70s and 80s would have been on a sugary peg, but Runrig kept it going.
Yeah. So here we go. The Bal number Bal.
Appalen en barst duske gevies Gevi kant die patloentjen en duiren hein Ach heet just ook graag stel ik hier Sparmel nog met barst in het doen is net aan Bemmerie god al die jingen barst Verre even zo praten van naar Billy en Gier en schitten verre was Licht zet naar paars down en doe maar aan Appalen en baars de toeske gevies Jevie kant is wat vriendjen en deuren en hein Ach heet just zo graag stel ik Yes, but no, but even good is the One good, it's boy, I'm Washington a barstach gestai Ivan Carnes Getsate van Holes Boniamon en Round Alle die pointjen en koersen en bang Ballen en barst en doelsen en vies Stevie kant die patintjen en deuren en hein Ach, ik just zo graag
Lovely. Excellent.
That
was yours.
Sorry, yeah.
Sorry?
That was
That was yours. I got that one right.
yeah.
1 out of 3 is not bad, Peter.
1 out of 3 is not bad. I'm a long way away up here in Shetland. I'm miles away. I don't get to see very much sometimes.
Yeah, so it's been,
So yeah, it was
good
great. There was
speaking to you
some archive footage from when the cairn was kind of rebuilt to mark the Clancarry, and some footage from myself and Bob visiting the Clancarry materials, which is held in the Harp or the Clarsach, and the book of Clanranald, which is held in the National Museum of Scotland.
Wow.
Fantastic. So, can I just say before we're wrapping things up tonight, it's been wonderful speaking to you, but if anybody wants to buy albums and your CDs and things, best place to jump onto your website there at the bottom?
Yeah, gilliabreach.com, and there's a place to buy them there, and they're also available on all the kind of the streaming and
Yes.
downloading
Okay.
platforms and so on. But if you want the lyrics with translation, yes, on my website.
Fantastic, that's great. So there you go, folks. If you fancy a look on the site, I would recommend it and go on. It's been some fantastic videos, fantastic footage, fantastic singing, fantastic stories. Brilliant, very good.
Thank you,
Really
Capitalism.
enjoyed it. Davey looks as if he's about to ask a difficult question.
No, I'm going to butcher the language and say to him, Morantang.
Shetiveha.
See?
Oh, boy.
Look at Peter's face. Look at Peter's face. He's like,
Holy
blank
moly.
expression. No, it's been great having you, and thanks so much for joining us
Thank you.
tonight.
Thank you for asking me.
Anything more for yourself, Peter?
No, I was just wanting to say thank you very much for giving up your time on a Sunday night. There's so many people enjoyed this out there, and hopefully you'll keep in touch with the show. Any projects you've got coming,
I will do.
let us know, please, and we'll put it on all our sites and all our channels for you.
Thank you very much.
That would be fantastic. Thank you so much, and take
Thanks
care and stay safe out there. Cheers. Bye.
Bye for now. That was great.
Brilliant. Cool. Hold on, I'm just trying to get through some of these comments here.
Right.
While
I'll
you
give you time, it's okay.
thank everybody for
No, it's been great. We've had some great responses to our guest tonight. And please
Absolutely.
do go onto the websites as mentioned earlier on. You can just go back and rewatch with the website addresses and support the artists in general.
I think the whole thing about the show is we're trying to bring on variety as well. Let you meet the people. Let you meet the person behind the voice or the person behind the instrument or whatever. And it seems to be working really nicely. It's quite a casual show, and we're very, very lucky that there's lots of guests. We're pretty much booked up with guests for the next 2 or 3 months again, actually. So
Yeah, we're back at it. Yep.
So we've got lots and lots of other good guests coming for you over the next few months. It's been great doing this show and just so fantastic to meet everybody. And I think we're in a nice situation that the kind of music and the culture we've got, the people are great fun, great crack, up for coming on, having a tune, having a laugh. I'm not sure I would have liked Michael Parkinson's job. I bet he had some really awkward.
Well, yeah, I was watching that program the other day with him, and he admitted that there's a few times he's misspoken and annoyed very, very famous people.
Hopefully we've not done that yet. We've not done that yet. So far, so good.
Not yet. There's still time for that.
Anyway, listen, we're going to go. You never know. Hopefully, fingers all crossed. You and I are going to catch up this week for the first time ever.
We are.
We are. I'm coming down on Tuesday to do a wee gig in Braemar on Tuesday night, and Davey and I are hopefully going to get together through the day because we haven't actually met in person yet. So we don't really know what height each other is really. Do we?
Yeah, that was a question asked by my wife the other day.
That's for you.
How tall is Peter? I have no idea. I'll never see him sitting down. So
yeah, so fingers crossed. All going well. I'll meet you at 9:30 on Tuesday in Aberdeen Airport. That'll be good.
Yep, exactly.
I'll have an accordion and you'll have one of these signs. You'll have some pipes and I'll have some accordion. We might even get a tune together and record some stuff for the show. That'll be good.
We'll hopefully get a tune. Yeah.
So
it's
really
great.
looking forward to that. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tonight. Take care, stay safe out there, and join us next Sunday. In fact, join us every Sunday at 8 o'clock for Tartan Tunes. And if you can, always remember you can watch it back on Facebook or YouTube. It's always there to watch back. So thanks very much for all joining in again. And there's Amy Bailey on. Hi Amy, how are you? I hope you're doing well. Amy was on the show once before as well, great singer. And there we go, Ron's over in, I think it's America or Canada, Ron's it. So thanks very much, folks. Take care, David. See you on Tuesday.
All the best. See you then.
You will recognise me. You'll recognise me when you see me.
Are you wearing your pink carnation?
I wear the pink carnation, but I kind of have that kind of Bruce Willis look about me when I'm walking through the airport. So, all right, you'll recognise me. It's fine.
I was thinking more baby elephant walk, but yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Right.
I'll see you later.
Right.
All the best.
Cheers.